بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه رب يسر يا كريم توكلت على الله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, all praise be to Allah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and shower His Prophet and Messenger Muhammad and his family and companions and followers and us with them with showers of peace and blessings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate this gathering and teach us beneficial knowledge, inshallah. Welcome to the 8th session of Purification of the Heart. Inshallah, today we'll do our very best to maybe go for an hour, maybe a little less, or a little more, we'll see. And we'll basically, we will be covering two diseases of the heart today. One is envy, the other is love of the world. So we'll start with love of the world, and maybe we'll quickly read the verses. Just if anyone is listening or watching for the first time, we are reading from the book Purification of the Heart, which is an English translation of an Arabic work by Imam Mawlud, one of the Mauritanian scholars of Islam, and the translation is done by Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. Actually, he's now Dr. Hamza Yusuf. I believe he just received his PhD like last month or a few weeks ago or something. But anyway, this is the book called The Purification of the Heart. You can find it online. There's a PDF. You can buy the book online and you can read it on your own. But we go through it, inshallah, together. The disease today is called love of the world, hubbud dunya. And the poetry line says, realize also that blameworthy love of this world is what is solely for the benefit of the self. It does not include desiring it so that others are not burdened by your needs and so that you are secure from dependence upon other people. Nor does it include desiring it as provision for the next world. Indeed, love of this world falls under the 5 categories of legal rulings, such that it is acceptability or detriment is based on what it helps one to achieve. If the love of something of this world is for the purpose of helping one achieving something prohibited, then it is also prohibited. As such, censuring the world is only for those things that do not advance one's salvation. Thus, for these reasons, censuring is restricted to its ardent love. Indeed, the best of creation, the Prophet ﷺ, prohibited censuring prohibited cursing the world. Things are praised or censured only by virtue of what results from them, like healing or disease. Therefore, what is obtained for one's physical necessities by means of wealth or worldly position is beneficial. Still, some scholars scorn the accumulation of great wealth, fearing the risk of transgression, the bounds of permissibility. One who earns wealth for the purpose of vainglorious competition is reckoned as among those who perpetrate enormities. Love of praise for what one has not accomplished is caused by desiring other than God the Exalted. So these were just the translation of the Arabic poetry line. Obviously, in Arabic they sound more poetic. They have this poetic sound to them, and they sound more beautiful to actually recite and to read. And as a result, that's why scholars actually of Islam, and especially we were talking about the later Islamic centuries, not earlier. They would put together the important works, whether it is in spirituality or law or language even. They would put it in, or even the art of tajweed or recitation of the Quran. They would put it in beautiful, easily read, easily memorized lines of poetry, so that people can memorize them, and therefore that's a way of making knowledge available to the masses and to people. And that's something, by the way, I think that was one of the great things that the East and the West kind of shared. When you study the history of science in the Western world, you find that idea of scientists that would give public lectures in big universities, Cambridge, Oxford, and even here in the States, big name scholars would give public lectures to make their discoveries, make their work and research available to the public and to the masses, so it's not just something that's studied in classrooms. Same thing here with our Muslim scholars. They would create these poetry lines that everyone can memorize, almost like how kids now memorize songs and popular songs that kind of gets in their head and they can never forget them. Same thing with Muslim scholars. They would create these lines of poetry to really teach important things so that people can memorize them. Even if you are not really a scholar or not really even a student of knowledge, you would memorize these lines of poetry, and important information would be ingrained in your mind, and you would be readily able to recall them whenever you need them. And that's something we should do, and we should consider as Muslim communities nowadays, to really create popular, whether songs or music or movies or TV shows, about important principles and concepts and morals and ethics that we want to teach our kids, instead of letting others do that and feed their brains and their vulnerable, growing minds with things that do not agree with our principles and our moral and ethical guidelines. But anyway, now let's delve into the definition and treatment of the love of this world, because it's really important discussion, and you have to make a distinction between the blameworthy and the praiseworthy love of the world. And in Islamic tradition, we have a saying attributed to Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, that states, "The world is a bridge. So pass over it to the next world, but do not try to build on it or dwell on it." And that's what Isa alayhi salam said, dunya qantara, meaning a bridge. You are passing over it, so don't build a house and live on a bridge, because that's not what the bridge is for. It's just, a place to pass through. And that's what life is. And so love of this world is considered blameworthy, though that doesn't include some healthy degree of love of this world. And that's what we really need to distinctly understand, that there is a healthy amount of loving this world, loving things of this world. Islam doesn't teach hatred of the world, doesn't teach resentment of the world, doesn't teach a total turning our backs on this world and not being attached to it. But again, like Isa alayhi salam said, it's a bridge. It's here for us to be in a certain, to pass through it and to just go through it, and that's it. We're not here to stay. So you can love to the point that will make you enjoy in a praiseworthy way, but not really get overly attached to it. So, and therefore love of this world might be blameworthy, but it doesn't include things such as wanting things of this world in order to be free from burdening others with one's needs. Meaning that, we don't want people to stay in the masjid praying, all the time and saying, I don't love the world. Islam teaches me that, and I just love God and I want to worship God all the time. Because then you become a burden on the society, and the society now has to feed you and clothe you and shelter you. So that's not part of that is a blameworthy attitude. And love of the world in that case is actually praiseworthy. The love of the world that gets you out working, feeding yourself, feeding your family, and staying in a well, healthy place in society. Also, it does not include desiring provision from the world for the purpose of attaining the best of the hereafter. When one achieves a certain level of success, a certain level of affluence, or a certain level of financial stability, one is able to actually then have the time, when appropriate and when possible, even daily, if one chooses to worship, to dedicate time to God in our daily lives. And so again, love of the world is not all blameworthy. And it's like the Imam says in his poetry, it falls under what we call the five categories of classical Islamic legal rulings. And that's very important to know, because not just for this discussion about love of the world and purification of the heart, but I always get questions from people about things, and they get really surprised when I say it depends. It could be halal, it could be haram, it could be mandub, it could be mubah, it could be this or that, and they get really surprised. I thought it's just black and white, it's either this or that. And the fact is no, we have what we call the five categories of Islamic rulings, and one thing, it's a sliding scale. One thing can be at a certain time on one end of the scale, and another time it could be on the other end, or it could be somewhere in between. So what are these five categories of classical legal rulings? We have what we call wajib, or obligatory. Something can be an obligation. But also there's something called mandub, or recommended. And the same thing could, be at a certain point obligatory, but then it moves to being recommended, or mandub, in another time, or for another person, or in another place. And then we have what we call permissible, or mubah. And then we have what we call reprehensible, or makruh, something that is disliked. And then finally we have what we call haram, or forbidden. So is love of this world haram? Is it haram? Is it forbidden to love this world? Or something else? Well, it's a sliding scale. It depends what you love of this world, and how much you love of this world, and how much you get attached to it, and how much time of your life you dedicate to this world. And the Sheikh here says we should love, for example, the things of this world that help us achieve felicity in the hereafter. So you love, and I kind of want to add more to that, but he says we should love the Quran, we should love the Kaaba, we should love the Prophet, our parents, we should love godly people, righteous people, we should love knowledge and seeking knowledge, we love the children, brothers and sisters who help us in our religious affairs. But I also think we should, and he says that, as well as love of wealth in order to give to the needy. But I also think we should love this world in a healthy way that doesn't mean we get obsessed with it. You can love to be successful, you can love to have money, you can love to dress well. I'm remembered with this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said that none who have an atom weight of arrogance in their hearts will enter paradise. And a man comes to the Prophet, and I love that he came to the Prophet asking that question. He says, well, what if I like to dress well? What if I like to look well? What if I like even my shoes to be shined, my hair to be combed, my clothes to be washed? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not arrogance. That's actually beauty. And God loves beauty, because God is beautiful, and He is the creator of beauty in this world. So I like to say that in addition to loving these religious sentiments he said about God and the Quran and the Prophet and so on and so forth, I also think that there is nothing wrong in loving in a healthy, non-attached way. And when I say non-attached way, meaning that that, like everything and everyone, there is a moment that comes in life when you die and you leave everything behind. So there's nothing wrong in wanting to have a good house, or wanting to have a good car, or wanting to have nice clothes. Should this be the goal in life? Is this the end, or is this the means to an end? That's the question that we should ask, and that's the discussion we should have. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited that we kind of vilify, or the vilification of the world. He said, do not curse the world, for God created the world, and the world is a means to reaching knowledge of God. And the reason we're having this discussion is that there are people who, driven by their religious commitments or sentiments or convictions, they might think that Islam or religion in general teaches that we turn our backs completely against the world and become, poor, weak, people who don't have nothing, who don't own nothing, who just want nothing of this world or nothing to do with this world. And that's a misunderstanding of religion. That's a misunderstanding of life in general. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us this in the Quran, and He says, and He has subjugated for you what is in the heavens and what is on earth, all of it from Him. Indeed, therein are sure signs for a people who reflect. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and He placed us in this beautiful world, and He subjugated everything for our enjoyment, for us to enjoy, to have as much as possible, and He did not prohibit us from it all. The prohibition, the circle of prohibition is limited and can be numbered. And when we read the Quran, Allah numbers these things that are haram because they are few. حرم عليكم this and this and this and that. Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير. The things that were made forbidden for you is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can number them on one hand. Why? Because it's very limited. But then beyond that, الأصل في الأشياء الإباحة. The origin state of everything is that it's permissible. It's allowed for us to have. It's allowed for us to enjoy. So why make it haram on ourselves? So the world is a great sign of God, as and everything in it as well. And we don't accept this doctrine of condemning the world, which we can find in some religious traditions, and we can find, and sadly, among some religious people within our Muslim circles. We say as God says, He created everything in the world and has subjugated it as resources for our just and conscientious use. This is the really important part, that we use it in a just way, we use it in a balanced way. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We have created you to be a just and balanced community, not too extreme in one way, not too extreme in the other way. We're not going after the world as crazy, worldly people who think that this is it, you only live once, and we don't really turn our back against it in a way that makes us a weak and vulnerable community. So our just and conscientious use of the resources available to us in this world, no matter whether it's on an individual or a communal level, is what we are after here. What is really censured is loving those things that are sinful or that lead to sinful matters, and loving the aspects of the world that are fleeting to the point that it suppresses one's spiritual yearning, like as though we love this world, that it blinds us from the reality that there is another world and there is an afterlife that comes after it. And so the author of the text of the poetry lines here, Imam Mawlud, holds that love of the world is praised or blamed based on what good or harm it brings to you, to a person. If it leads to a diseased heart, such as it creates greed or arrogance in our hearts, then it's blameworthy. But if it leads to spiritual elevation and healing of the heart, then it becomes praiseworthy. And anything that is obtained from the necessities of living on earth, food, housing, shelter, clothing, all of that and the like, this is beneficial and is not considered worldly per se, and it's not love of the world, and it's not love of the world that is blameworthy. Attaining wealth and position for the benefit of the needy, this too is not considered blameworthy as at all. I don't want to make assumptions here, and I'm not making a judgment, or I'm not making a case, but I'm like, from now, every now and then I will listen to an interview or read an article by Bill Gates, for example, and pretty much every time I read something or listen to him, he isn't really talking about his wealth, how much money he has, how he enjoys it, how he spends it. almost always listen to him making a case for something good that he's trying to do in the world, whether it is working on vaccines somewhere, to make it available to people around the world, or working on research for making education available, or something of that nature. And again, I'm not making a case for Bill Gates. It's not like I have anything to do with him, or I'm expecting anything from him in exchange of these nice words. But I'm just saying, here's a wealthy man who pretty much the richest person living in our world, and here he is not really attached to his wealth to a point, and maybe he does, I don't know. But what I see from him, what I hear from him, when I read his articles or read his report that he sends out, or the work that his foundation does, here he is helping people around the world. Maybe he's getting something out of it. That's not my business. But my point I'm trying to do here is that you can be in the world, but you can use it for the benefit of others. And that is praiseworthy. And that is good. And there is nothing absolutely wrong with that. And that... one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is to say to a man who wanted to give up all his money, and the Prophet ﷺ said, لأن تدع أهلك أغنياء. The meaning of the hadith, allow me to find it here. لأن تدع ورثتك أغنياء خير لك من أن تدعهم عالة على الناس، أو أغنياء خير من أن يتكففوا. or جاء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعودني وأنا بمكة وهو يكره أن يموت بالأرض التي هاجر منها قال يرحم الله ابن عفراء قلت يا رسول الله أوصي بمالي. So a man was on his deathbed, and the Prophet ﷺ came to visit him, and he said, "O Messenger of God, should I just donate all of my money, or make a wasiyah for all of my money, كله, everything that I own?" قال لا قلت فالشطر قال لا قلت الثلث قال لا. He said, the man said, "Should I donate half of it?" The Prophet said, "No." And then he said, "How about my third? Should I give the third of my wealth away before I die?" The Prophet said, "Sure, third is good, but third is even too much. أن تدع ورثتك أغنياء. It is best that you leave your offspring after your death your wealth, so that they are their needs are taken care of, and they are not really in a place where خير من أن تدعهم عالة يتكففون الناس. It's best and better for them than you donating all of your money and then leave them going around and asking from people. في أيديهم وإن. So the point here I'm trying to make, someone who just says, "I'm not going to I don't love the world, and therefore I won't work in it, I will not achieve any success, I will not go after attaining any wealth." Well, what are you doing to your family? What are you doing to the people that you are responsible for, your parents or your kids or your spouse or something? So again, in that case, a healthy amount of but a healthy amount of love of this world is praiseworthy and acceptable. Again, to take care of the needy, to take care of the people that you are responsible for, and not leave them in need of others, extending their hands and asking for help. But it doesn't mean we go like crazy, like animals, like beasts in the wilderness in this world, and it becomes our sole concern as we live in this world. And what scholars traditionally really have warned against with regard to attaining wealth is the danger of transgression. That the more wealth one acquires, the higher the probability one will become preoccupied with other than God. The more wealth you have, the more time you spend at night thinking how you're going to increase it, how you're going to protect it from being lost. And that's what scholars really warn against. That it's not the per se having money, or having wealth, or being well-to-do, but it's about being occupied with it to a point where you forget your obligations towards yourself, towards others around you, and of course, first and foremost, towards God. And also vying for wealth can become an addiction and lead to to other problems that are diseases of the heart as well. So you become preoccupied with making money, with worldly success, and meanwhile your heart is becoming corrupt, and you don't have time to do what we call work of the heart and purification of the heart. Um, so, and by the way, the Prophet ﷺ made dua, where he seeked refuge in Allah from poverty. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-faqr. And he made dua where he asked Allah al-ghina, he asked Allah al-kafaf, which means to have enough to live in this life comfortably without having to ask others. That's what the Prophet asked. He didn't really ask for trucks loads of money or something, but he asked for enough to never have to ask people. And he always seeked refuge in Allah from debt. He always seeked refuge in Allah from poverty and asking and asking. So there is a line there that is that kind of that is very, very, very subtle, actually, to determine of how much of this world should we have, should we ask, should we go after. Love of praise is another disease, particularly the love of praise for something one has not done, or really taking credit for things that you didn't do. And people naturally love praise, but it shouldn't be for something that one hasn't actually done, or taking credit for something that you haven't really done. There is a beautiful ayah in the Quran: وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْرَحُونَ بِمَا أَتَوْا وَيُحِبُّونَ أَن يُحْمَدُوا بِمَا لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا فَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّهُمْ بِمَفَازَةٍ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ. The people who love to be praised for things they haven't done. It is not necessarily wrong to want people to appreciate what one has done, but what. And the Prophet ﷺ actually encouraged that if someone man abda ilaykum sani'an, if someone does something good to you, you should say jazakumullahu khairan. Thank them by saying, may Allah reward you goodness, may Allah reward you with abundance of good. But we must make the distinction between flattery and appreciation. There is two difference, because the Prophet actually also said, throw dirt in the face of flatterers, people who pour praise and nice words like out of line and too much, instead of just saying thank you or saying jazakumullahu khair, you just continue to say nice things and flatter people, because that gives a way to the shaitan to blow in their ego and cause it to swell and to become they become addicted to it, and they want to hear it all the time. And in fact, modern research on parenting suggests that you can just don't overpraise your kids, because then that's their goal in life for doing anything becomes that. And you tell them to do something and they say, well, what am I getting out of it? No, you do it because it's right, not because you expect to be rewarded or given praise. And then when they grow up and they go to work and they do their job, and they don't see people like really flattering them all the time, they feel like, hey, I don't feel fulfilled, I need to leave this job and get something else where I feel fulfilled. And that's where we have all of that Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook, people looking for praise and looking for likes and thumbs up and things like that. But anyway, so that's something to also consider as far as loving this world, is people loving to be thanked, and to be always know that ultimately whatever you do, you're doing it to feel accomplished in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be a winner with God, to be praised by God, to be thanked by God, and to be rewarded by God for what you have done. Not do it for the sake of being rewarded here, because no matter how much reward you get in this world, if it is not accepted by God, if it is not praiseworthy by God, then it really is kind of meaningless. All right, so we move on. This is the portion for love of this world. We move on to another point here, or another disease of the heart, which what we call envy or al-hasad. There's so many lines of poetry here, but maybe let us skip the lines of poetry and kind of go into the definition right away. The envy or hasad is actually considered a severe disease of the spiritual disease of the heart. That in fact some scholars hold to be the root of all diseases, while others have the opinion that the parent disease goes back to what we call covetousness or tama. Why? Because when we look at the story of Adam and the creation of Adam, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed into Adam and Hawa and gave them life, what did Allah say? Allah commanded the angels to bow down to both of them out of respect. When shaitan, when shaitan was then refused to obey God and to obey the command of God, what does shaitan say? He says, I am better. Nothing prevented Iblis from bowing down except that envy of Adam. For God chose Adam to be the Khalifa on earth instead of Iblis. Now Iblis grew arrogant and objected to that command of God to show honor to that new creation, and Iblis saw himself as better. Creation as a creation of fire. قال أنا خير من خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. I am better. I am created from fire. He's created from mud. When confronted with this disobedience, Shaitan did not seek forgiveness from God. In fact, he became envious of Adam. So what happens is that enviers, develop a mindset that makes it impossible for them to admit they were wrong. To manifest envy is to manifest one of the characteristics of the most wretched creature of all, which is shaitan. Na'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. So in Arabic, when we look at the word hasad, or the word hasud or hasid, it's a person who carries this envy or emanates the envy. And the object of envy is called mahsud. So the hasid and the mahsud. And in fact, the Quran teaches us to seek refuge in Allah from the evil of envier, the hasid. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. One of the surahs that the Prophet ﷺ told us to read continuously in the morning, in the evening, when we wake up after Fajr, we sit down and we recite this surah or these surahs, and which include وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. At night before we sleep, same thing. You read these surahs, and one of them is وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. And the Prophet ﷺ actually said that envy consumes good deeds the way fire devours dry wood. So if you have good deeds, do not burn them away by having envy in your heart. Again, that's one of the dangers of the diseases of the heart, is that they are subtle. You can't feel them, you can't sense them, and they can really make all of your good deeds void. And that's why purification of the heart is central to any religious or spiritual development. The Prophet also said, every possessor of any blessings is envied. Someone of means will always have someone who envies them for what they have, no matter what these means are. Even if you look at two cleaning workers, street sweepers, in a world where these people exist, they will envy each other. The one who is pulling the cart will envy the one who has a donkey to pull his cart. And so you find that across cultural, social, economic status and ranks in the world, people always envy someone who has something that they don't have. And while it is true that envy can bring about harm to the one who is envied or believed, ultimately the problem is that envy harms the one who has it, the beholder of envy in their hearts. That's where the problem comes from. The evil eye is kind of like generally related to envy, and we find it in different cultures. We find that concept of evil eye. We find it in the Chinese culture. We find it even in African culture. We find it across cultures, this idea of the evil eye. And so, the Prophet ﷺ said the evil eye is true. Inna al-ayna haqq. The evil eye is true. And it's not superstitious or superstition, because the Prophet ﷺ worked very hard to eradicate from Muslims' minds, especially coming from the culture of Arabia that was filled with superstitious beliefs. The Prophet worked very hard to eradicate it. But one of the things that is not as superstitious is the evil eye. And the Prophet ﷺ said the evil eye is true. And the Arabs, for example, before Islam, they believed that when the moon or there was a lunar eclipse, it meant that a great person died. And in fact, when the Prophet's own son Ibrahim alayhi salam died, there was the moon eclipsed. And if the Prophet was a soothsayer or a liar or someone who had a personal hidden agenda, he would have cashed on that and be like, oh yep, see, yeah, the moon eclipsed before my son. Now you all should bow down to me or something. But the Prophet actually announced the moon is a sign from God, the sun is a sign from God. They do not eclipse for anyone. The reason I'm saying that here is that when the Prophet teaches us that the eye or the evil eye is true, is haqq, we gotta believe the Prophet ﷺ, because he's not teaching us superstition or superstitious beliefs. Because if he does, he would also have taught us that the moon eclipsed for this death of his own son. But now to understand it, now that hopefully you believe that it's true according to the Prophet ﷺ, the Imam Mawlud explained that envy here is exhibited when one desires that another person lose a blessing that he or she has. And that's the kind of the true meaning of envy. It is not really much as like someone has a superpower that can cause something to split into half or cause someone to die upon just gazing at them or something. But the true really danger and the true meaning of envy is that in your heart, someone who is envious, in their heart, they have this desire that another person be deprived of a blessing from God. And we will see how dangerous that is as far as aqeedah and as far as belief is concerned. And this loss could be anything big or small, like a house, a car, a job, a wife, a kid, whatever. You look at something that you don't have and you're like, I wish they didn't have it. Or you don't even wish that they didn't have it, but you have a degree of envy and hatred and desire for something that not only you want it for yourself, but you want them to lose it. And that is when the Prophet says in al-ayna haqq, that the danger of envy lies in that feeling and in that desire that someone else loses something that you don't have. And an envious person can really become resentful that a co-worker was promoted to the point that they wish that they would lose their job. A woman could be envious of another woman's husband, or a man can be envious of another woman's wife. Why would they have this husband? Why do they have this wife and this and that? Why do they have the kids? These kids, good kids, my kids are not as good as their kids, blah, blah, blah. But not only you are envious, like to the point to say and saying, wow, look at them, they are much better than me. But envy goes even beyond that and farther and deeper, and it reveals a true sickness of the heart where you just really don't want them to have it anymore. You wish they would lose it, and they would lose it now. And some, we find that envy kind of arises over what one perceived to be a blessing in someone else's position. And that's why I'm saying this is the danger as far as belief, is that you're almost saying God didn't do a fair job or a just job in allocating God's blessings. As the Imam says, it reaches to the point that an envier would himself remove the blessing if he were or she were able to do so. But what they forget to understand is that what is perceived as a blessing could be based on a completely false notion. That wife you are envying, that husband you are envying, these kids you are envying, that job or that car, that house or that money or this, beauty or that position you are envying could actually be a source of difficulty and trouble. And the other way around, something that is difficult could be a blessing in disguise. So when we envy someone, we are ignorant of what is a blessing and what is difficulty and what and how and why God allocate blessings in the way God does. What we call ni'mah is something only bestowed by God. What one of Allah's name is Al-Mun'im. He is the one who bless. He is the one who allocates His blessings in a way that in a million years we will never be able to understand why and how and what is the wisdom and what are the measurements behind that. And so in essence, envy is desiring that a person's lose what God Himself has allocated and has chosen to bless them with. It's almost saying that God should not have given this person a blessing. Or even worse, it is like saying he was wrong in doing so. God was wrong because I deserve it more. And to a point where you're saying, I'm going to take it from them, or I'm going to make them lose it, or I want them to lose it, or they don't deserve it. God is all wise in what God does and what God gives. If one questions the blessing a person has received, then they are actually questioning God. And this makes envy really reprehensible and forbidden, and one of the most dangerous diseases of the heart in the Islamic spiritual tradition. And that's why some of the scholars, as I said earlier, think that it is the root of all problems, because Iblis was envious of Adam, and that's why Iblis rebelled, and that's why this whole dichotomy of good and evil in the world has happened in the first place, because of envy. But the good news is that there is treatment. For every تداووا عباد الله فما أنزل الله داء إلا وأنزل معه الدواء أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Seek treatment, because Allah has not created anything harmful without creating the antithesis, the disease, the cure for it as well. But the point is that we have to search for the cure, we have to work for the cure. And the Imam prescribes 2 cures for envy. The first is to outwardly and consciously oppose your desires and your caprice once you have them in your heart. The term for caprice here is what we call hawa, the hawa, and it's actually derived from the Arabic word, the word that means to fall, hawa, to fall. And it is also related to the Arabic word for wind, because this caprice or this desire or this passion is like the wind, in that it comes, it stirs up your emotions, and then dies down, and you cannot really see it or feel it, only the effect, what it does to you in your heart. And the problem is following one's whims or caprice or desires or passion takes a person away from the truth. And so the point here that Imam Maulud is trying to make is that you have to resist these feelings when they come to your heart. The feeling of envy, the feeling of I wish I had this, I wish they didn't have it. You always have to realize it, to be conscious of it, and to oppose it. And we will see how we can oppose it in just a second. The Quran repeatedly kind of warns us against following our caprice. It tells us of nations before us that were bygone communities who grew arrogant when God messengers came to them with admonitions, with teachings, with messages, with revelations that did not agree with their caprice, their hawa, their desires. So what did they do? They rejected them. Not only rejected them, but they even killed the messengers. Read in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, when Allah say in Surah number 5, Ayah number 70, so they rejected the message and even killed the messengers. Also, God praised those who resist the caprice of their souls and promised them paradise. One of the names of hell mentioned in the Quran is Al-Hawiya. Al-Hawiya means people fall into hell fire just like they fell for their hawa, for their desires, for their caprice, for their passion, which is derived from the same root as hawa. So what Imam Mawlud suggests that one contradicts any temptations or any hawa or any desire that is to do something that will benefit the person who is envied. For example, give someone that you wish a blessing to be taken away from them, give them a gift. If they are someone that you just give them a gift. So someone that and you really wish and desire that something is gone from their lives because of the envy that you have in your heart, right away give them a gift, small or big, doesn't matter, and give it to them. And this defies defies the commands of one's own passion and desires and whims. And you gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you protect against envy. He also suggests that one may praise the person toward whom one feels the urge to slander. Like if you really envy someone to a point that you have nothing but bad and ill feelings towards them, praise them. Say nice things about them in their presence and in their absence. And again, we talked about flattery a little bit earlier, not to a point that is extreme, but just say nice things. Say nice words in their presence and in their absence. And that's not hypocrisy, by the way. That is remedy. And the remedy is always against the disease, and it works against it. And the point is to starve envy of any negative thoughts. It requires to thrive. Being beneficent beneficent to a person against whom you have feels of envy often make that person inclined towards the envier. And in general, good people are inclined to the ones who to love those who show them good things, or say good things to them. So again, the treatment here is to go against your desires. If you see someone that you envy, and you wish something to be taken away from them, give them something. If you envy someone and you just have negative thoughts about them, say nice things in their presence. So you always go against what yourself is telling you to do. And don't do it in a creepy way that will start them wondering, why is he or she doing this or saying that? Do it in a genuine, in an honest way that does not seem or sound creepy or weird. And another treatment to know with certainty that holding envy against another person brings harm to yourself, not to them. You're envying someone, it's only harming you. And always being conscious of that feeling that I am actually harming myself when I'm envying people, that will create an awareness in your mind and mindfulness that little by little, eventually, your feelings of envy will start to die down. And again, I'm not saying that everyone is listening to me is suffering with envy, but someone with a certain, and we all, to a certain degree, have some envy in our hearts. So just being aware of yourself, how you feel towards people, how you feel towards others, is very important. And knowing that only Allah benefit, only Allah harms, that my feelings in fact do harm me more than they harm anyone else. And it's easier for a person to repel negative feelings when they realize these feelings hurt their soul, because we have that inclination towards protecting ourselves from any harmful thing. And when you know that you are the cause of harm to yourself, you start doing something to stop it and to control it. And just to know, envy in fact can damage one's sanity. When you have resentment that that prevents you from accomplishing any significant achievements, because you're always filled with these clouds of negative thoughts and feelings towards people, and a person who shuns envy, even when others around them seem to be passing them by, is always motivated to excel and is not slumped over in depression or resentment of some sort. And the Imam says that one way to uproot envy is to realize with reflection that envy can never benefit its holder. One should also realize what people attain in terms of material wealth is prestige, or prestige is only from God. He is all-knowing, we are not. So when you look at something or someone, you love it so much to a point you want them to lose it, just know that the only reason they have it is because God gave it to them. If you tell that to yourself repeatedly, if you are someone who suffers with, from envy, then you tell that to yourself once, twice, 3 times, all the time, then inshallah eventually you get to look at the world and see it as it all comes from God. You look at someone's house and it's so big and you say, MashaAllah, look how much Allah gave them. MashaAllah, may Allah give them more. May Allah give me something similar to it. You look at some kids and you're like, wow, look at his or her kids are well behaved, they are nice, they are religious, they are quiet. And you say, MashaAllah, look, God gave him that. How amazing. Alhamdulillah, who gives things like that. May Allah give me something similar. May Allah give them more. You look at someone riding a car. I love Tesla. I inshallah, my goal, not my goal, but I hope in life that I can get a Tesla, like the newest model, just because I like environment and I want to ride a car that is good for the environment. But anyway, when you see someone riding a car like that, what do? You don't say, oh my God, look at that, And that's another thing I'm going to say in a second. But you don't say, oh, I wish they didn't have it, I wish I had it. No. Say, Alhamdulillah, look how generous Allah is. Look how bountiful Allah is. Look how amazing Allah is capable of giving people good things. Inshallah, they have another one and a better one. And inshallah, me too, I will have one. And anyone who wants one will get one, inshallah, whether in this life or in the afterlife. So having this attitude will help someone who is suffering with envy. But to be honest, not just someone who's dealing with envious problem, but anyone in general. We all, again, have a certain amount of envy, more or less, and we need that to be able to, always, self-check and self-clean and self-purify ourselves. And another thing I wanted to say here is to, very important, is always have the word MashaAllah on the tip of your tongue, but say it while you mean it. MashaAllah, people say it without really know what it means, just like InshaAllah, when we all as Muslims say InshaAllah and we really don't mean a thing when we say that. But MashaAllah means it is what God has willed. When we say InshaAllah, what we're saying is only when God wills this or that, something will happen. And we as Muslims, oh my God, we have abused this word so much to a point where we say inshallah and the only thing we mean is that I will not do it, it will not happen, which is wrong and haram, because you are lying when you're saying inshallah, meaning that you don't want to do something. And let us not abuse the word MashaAllah too, because MashaAllah is beautiful, and what it means is it is what Allah has willed. You have a beautiful spouse, it is what Allah willed. You have a beautiful kids, it is what Allah willed. You have a lot of money, it is what Allah wills or willed. You have fame, it is what Allah willed. You have position and power, it is what Allah willed. And Allah can will this for anyone and everyone, and Allah can will this for me. And I know that it all comes from Allah. Imagine you have these kinds of feelings in your life, in your heart, in your mind. Imagine. Wouldn't you be a satisfied, content, and happy person? Now run the opposite way and say, oh my God, why do they have it? Why would they get that? What did they do to deserve it? Why don't I have it? Don't you sound like a, like a resentful, angry, unhappy person? Which version of this you want? So the basis of the remedy for envy is to actually have taqwa, mindfulness of God. That God is the giver of everything, that God is in control of everything, that it all comes from Him, and what Allah wills happens. And having this active awareness of Him as the ultimate power over all the creation. Finally, brothers and sisters, there is a praiseworthy envy. A praiseworthy envy that actually is good. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the only cases of envy that praiseworthy is in two cases. One is when a person has been given wealth and spend it towards good causes. So they are charitable. Again, Bill Gates, for example, not as exclusively. Envying such a person is permissible because one desires is to have wealth in order to do righteous deeds with it and to give it for the needy. You are not saying, I want that money. No, you are saying, I want to be able to give money like this or that person is doing. MashaAllah, look, they donated $3,000, $30,000 in the Ramadan campaign. Ya Allah, give me similar so I can give similar to them, to what they have done. One may envy such a person because you don't want their wealth to be lost, and you don't want just to have it for having it. You want to actually be charitable like them. So that's a praiseworthy envy. The other person is one who has been given wisdom and knowledge, and they are teaching people, and you say to yourself, oh, MashaAllah, look how much knowledge they have. I hope and I wish and I pray that Allah gives me similar knowledge and wisdom so I also can teach people. So this way, you are not wishing them to lose what Allah has given them or what they have worked hard to do or to get, but you are wishing to get something similar so you can do similar to their work. So these are cases of praiseworthy envy that is good because it creates in the society this sense of competition in doing good. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسْ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. In this, let the competitors, let the people who have the desire to compete, let them really compete, because that's the one thing you want to compete in doing. Brothers and sisters, Jazakumullahu khair. Thank you very much for tuning in for today. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you with Purification of the Heart. We looked at love of the world, love of praise, and envy. Inshallah, we'll meet next time with 2 more diseases of the heart, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us beneficial knowledge, to benefit us with what we learn and read. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ward away or to protect us from knowledge that is not beneficial. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to work and act on what we have learned, not merely just learn it and listen to it and let it, just be something that we've listened to and enjoyed. No, we ask Allah to be able to work and act on what we have learned. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'na wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana warzuqna al-'amala bima 'alimna ya rabbal alamin. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I will be available for 5 more minutes if anyone has questions.